In August 1972, the life of 20-year-old Jody Lumias, a kind-hearted girl with a passion for horses, was tragically cut short in the most horrific way. In this video, we give you the shocking details of this tragic story. Jody Lumias was born in 1944 in Mill Creek, a suburb of Seattle, and from an early age, she adored these graceful animals. Her room was covered with drawings of horses, and Jody dreamed of becoming a nurse to help people, just as she cared for injured horses at the local stable. She lived with her parents and younger sister and was making plans to marry her fiancé, Jim. They had already settled into her family's home. But on August 23rd, everything fell apart. That day, Jody decided to visit her beloved horses at the stable. Her father usually gave her a ride, but he was busy, so she took her bicycle. Her mother, always worried about her daughter, gave her some change for a payphone and asked her to return before dark. Jody left in the afternoon, taking a bridle for her horse. On the way, she stopped by her neighbor and friend, inviting her to ride along, but the friend declined. Later, she was seen at a street corner buying apples from a young girl. That was the last time Jody was seen alive and well. Hours passed, and she didn't come home. Her parents grew concerned, and by nightfall, their worry turned to panic. Jody should have been home long ago, or at least called. Desperate, they contacted the police by dialing 911 and waited for officers to take a missing person report. But around 11 p.m., there was a knock on the door. The police brought devastating news. Jody had been found barely alive in the woods, but she died on the way to the hospital. Her mother collapsed to the floor. Her father stood frozen in shock. Their world shattered in an instant. The examination of Jody's body revealed horrifying details. She had suffered multiple severe injuries and a gunshot wound to the head. The attacker had assaulted her and then left her to die among the trees along the road to the stable, where she never arrived. She was found wearing only her shoes and underwear, with the rest of her clothing lying nearby. Her bicycle was discovered 50 meters from her body, but the bridle she had taken from home was never found. Investigators recovered an empty shell casing at the crime scene, but it led to no solid clues. Around 5:30 p.m., a man and a woman were driving by when they noticed something unusual near a fallen tree. They stopped and approached, only to discover Jody, covered in blood but still alive. Realizing the urgency of the situation, the man considered calling for an ambulance but decided there was no time to wait. They rushed her to the hospital themselves, making the trip in just 15 minutes. Unfortunately, Jody succumbed to her injuries on the way, never regaining consciousness. The police immediately launched an investigation at the crime scene. They interviewed the couple who had found Jody, examined the forested area, and collected evidence, including her clothing, the shell casing, and her bicycle. Investigators reconstructed her last known movements. After leaving her friend's house, she had been seen near the girl selling apples, and then she vanished. Jody's fiancé, Jim, was the first suspect. In a grim coincidence, he worked at the very hospital where she was taken. However, his colleagues confirmed that he had been on duty the entire time and never left the building. Investigators then turned their attention to the family that owned the wooded area where she was found, but they found no leads there either. Police questioned local residents and searched for witnesses, but every effort came up empty. With too few clues, the case went cold for years. For 36 years, Jody Lumias' case gathered dust in the archives. Detectives never gave up. They searched for suspicious individuals and questioned locals, but nothing led to a breakthrough. Over time, crucial evidence began disappearing. The bullet that killed Jody, her underwear, and biological samples. all vanished from storage, possibly destroyed by mistake due to a mix-up with another case. Only her shoes and a few pieces of clothing remained. It seemed that the truth would never be found. In 2008, the case was handed over to the cold case unit. Detectives re-examined the evidence and sent the preserved items to a forensic lab. Then, something miraculous happened. On one of Jody's shoes, they discovered a tiny stain, a drop of male semen that had remained undetected for 36 years. Forensic experts extracted DNA, but there were no matches in the FBI database. This meant that the killer had managed to avoid major crimes in the decades since. Investigators tested Jim's DNA, along with that of other potential suspects, and interviewed dozens of men from the area, requesting samples, but to no avail. They even created a deck of playing cards featuring information about unsolved cases, including Jody's murder, and distributed them in prisons, hoping that an inmate might reveal something. But the silence continued. Everything changed in 2018 when forensic genetic genealogy provided a new tool for justice. This technology made it possible to identify relatives through DNA, even distant ones. In July, detectives submitted the killer's DNA sample to Parabon, a lab specializing in genetic genealogy. Experts searched genealogical databases and found a third cousin of the perpetrator. What followed was painstaking work, tracing family trees, ruling out individuals based on gender, age, and location. Eventually, investigators narrowed it down to a family living just 30 minutes from the crime scene. The couple had 6 sons. One of them immediately stood out, Terrence Miller. In 1972, he was 30 years old and lived just 8 kilometers from the wooded area where Jody was found. His past was deeply troubling. 5 accusations of sexual assault, including crimes against children, though he had been acquitted each time. By 2018, 77-year-old Miller was living with his 4th wife, whom he had been married to for 43 years. Before that, he had 3 marriages. The first at 18 to a 14-year-old girl with whom he had 2 daughters, followed by 2 more wives and 3 more daughters. In total, he fathered 5 children with 3 different women. He had worked as a heavy equipment operator and in retirement sold ceramics with his wife. A quiet retiree? The detectives thought otherwise. To obtain his DNA, detectives began tracking him. On August 28th, Miller discarded a coffee cup at a casino. Police retrieved it, and forensic testing confirmed a match to the DNA found on Jody's shoe. A piece of evidence that had gone unnoticed for decades finally pointed to the killer. On April 10, 2019, Miller was arrested. The court set his bail at $1 million, which he paid through a bail bond company, securing his release for $100,000. He was allowed to await trial at home, wearing an ankle monitor. Jody's family was outraged. After living free for 47 years, he had once again avoided a jail cell. Their protest did not change the court's decision. The trial was repeatedly delayed. Miller's attorneys requested postponements, first in 2019, then again in 2020 due to the pandemic. They also attempted to exclude the DNA evidence from the case, but the court denied their motions. On October 26, 2020, the trial finally began. Miller pleaded not guilty and refused to speak, leaving everything to his lawyers. His defense team tried to cast suspicion on the man who had found Jody, noting inconsistencies in his statements. He had initially mentioned hearing gunshots, then changed his story to say he had been meeting a lover. He also owned a .22 caliber firearm, the same type as the murder weapon. However, his companion, who was terminally ill with cancer, testified that their version of events was true. They had found Jody by chance and had tried to save her. The prosecution's case rested on the DNA evidence. Miller insisted he had never met Jody, but a recorded conversation with his wife while in custody betrayed him. He admitted that the DNA would ruin him and that he expected to go to prison. The trial concluded on November 6th. As the jury deliberated, Miller's wife called the police on Monday morning. He had shot himself at home with a gun he had hidden despite his bail conditions. He was 78 years old. Unaware of his death, the jury returned with a guilty verdict. The judge insisted on reading it aloud for Jody's family. Her parents had not lived to see justice. Her father passed away in 2005, and her mother in 2019. Her younger sister, however, thanked everyone who had fought for the truth. Jody Lumias' story is a tragedy that finally found resolution after nearly half a century, thanks to the persistence of detectives and the power of science. Decades of despair, lost evidence, and doubt could not stop the pursuit of justice. Genetic genealogy proved that time holds no dominion over the truth. Dear readers, this story reminds us of the fragility of life and the belief that even the darkest secrets will one day come to light. May Jody's memory stand as a testament to the strength of the human will and the enduring hope for justice. And that concludes our coverage of this tragic story. If you found this video informative or thought-provoking, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates on cases like these. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share this video with your friends and give it a thumbs up if you found it valuable. Thank you for watching.